Where's this thing at? Let's see. Not that. Oh, there it is. Oh, there we go. Welcome to the latest edition of the Spookshow Rewind. This gives us a chance to go back and look at the archives of the All-American Spookshow Podcast, which you can find anywhere you get your podcast. We also have our new website, aaspookshow.com, where you can look at our archives, look at all the stuff that we put up here on YouTube. Pretty much a one-stop shop for everything. So we encourage you to go check that out. But this gives Donny an opportunity to go back and watch some of the movies that we did in the early days of the Spook Show before he was a member of the gang, so to speak. So he gives his rating. He does his Crypt connections, which is a bit we do nowadays that we didn't do back then. And another thing that we do now that we didn't do then was Professor Smoak gives his Gore Score. So we'll get to that here in a little bit. But for this month, we're going to be covering Halloween from 2018. So how appropriate that we just had the new Halloween movie, Halloween Ends, and we're going back to revisit that first one from 2018, which is really a sequel of of the original Halloween from the late 70s. So the whole Halloween timeline can be a little bit confusing, but I'm sure if you're watching this, you're familiar enough with it all, to kind of understand a little bit of what's going on there. But they just wrapped up that most recent trilogy from David Gordon Green and those guys. So, but we're gonna go back and revisit the first one that they did. And Donnie, I would assume that this was not the first time you've watched this for this time around. Right?
No, I'd seen it before when it came out.
What were your feelings on it back then? If you remember, like, initially when you saw it, what did you think about it? Love it, hate it?
I liked it, but I felt it was, and I guess it was. I thought that it could have been more violent. Maybe I thought maybe the gore was a little bit muted. For it to be a 2018. You're talking. Well, I guess in the timeline, it would technically be the sequel in the timeline.
Yeah.
But
40 years, like give or take, 40 years later.
Yeah, I mean, for it to be like a current sequel, I guess I kind of expected more.
Also, with the benefit of hindsight now that there's been two more of these movies, we had Halloween Kills and now Halloween Ends, and you look back on it now, you're probably going to look at it differently now than you did then. Of course, I think we all will, in some regard. But they really ratcheted up the gore and the violence and everything for Halloween Kills. So this one was kind of sitting, and to me, when you look back on it, this one was kind of like setting up the table for the violent, the way more violence for the second one. And then then it was almost like, and we talked about this on the podcast for Halloween Ends, how they kind of brought it back down a little bit for the third one and kind of went in almost a completely different direction. We're not going to get off on a tangent on that one for this. We encourage you to go check out our Halloween Ends show for our talk on that one. But and this one in particular, you had Jamie Lee Curtis coming back as Laurie Strode, Judy Greer was in it, Andy Matichak as her granddaughter Allison, James Jude Courtney, and Nick Castle as the Shape / Michael Myers. What did you think of? I mean, the casting and everything. What Donnie, what did you think of Jamie Lee Curtis specifically in this movie?
She was great in her role. I mean, obviously she knows the role well, having done it so many times. But yeah, it's really hard for me to separate. Kills and ends.
Well, how about this as far as like the way they wrote Laurie's character in this one was basically now she's kind of had a rough life because of what happened in that original Halloween movie.
Yeah.
But now she has become like somewhat of a Sarah Connor from Terminator kind of badass, kind of survival woman, right? Like who sets traps up in her house, waiting for the day that Michael Myers finally comes home. What did you think of that aspect of it? Like her character arc from the original Halloween to this, and how they played it out in this one, setting up for the way it ended in this movie. Not so much where it went from there.
This was kind of like the showdown that you wanted to happen. Between Michael and Laurie. Was basically. I mean, there's so many different homages or references to the first one, like when Laurie gets thrown out of the window and lands on the ground. And the same thing happened to Michael in the first one, and then Michael disappears, and so does Laurie. It's just there's so many different little references to the prior films.
Yeah, so I guess we'll go ahead and get to the main event. The main reason why we're here. So I'll go over our ratings after you've gave out yours, Donnie. We'll talk about what we gave it back then and give a consensus score. So the floor is yours. What do you think?
Yeah. So where I'm at, I've already without being a broken record, I do like that it does have a solid kill count. It's definitely in the high teens. That probably give or take. The head smash was cool. On the that was probably the goriest thing that I recall. The references, to the the 1978 classic and Halloween 2 and some others. Those are pretty cool, the homages. But would have liked more violence, more gore, more more punch. Oh, I do like kills a little better than this. I'm gonna go 3.25.
So yeah, that pretty much makes it across the board about a 3.5 stars for this one, because Will gave it, and this is after, like, we watched it back then, and then we had our first anniversary re-rating opportunity. Yeah. And I don't have that listed in front of me, whether we re-rated it or not later on. But the end score was Will gave it 3.5 stars, Smoak, you gave it 3.25 stars, and I gave it 3.5 stars. So add yours in, that's a little less than 3.5 stars across the board for this one.
Connections from the Crypt.
So what we do here is just connect the current Spook Show episode, or I'm sorry, the current movie to past Spook Show episodes. So this being, even though this was technically the 6th episode.
Yep.
6th episode. So this goes actually to any current episode. So looking at from the cast side, I mean, Jamie Lee Curtis, connects to Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends. And on the crew side, Jason Blum. And I hate to keep bringing his name up, but he's the most connected to this movie, and he was also in past Spook Show episodes of The Green Inferno, Crawlers, Halloween Kills, and Halloween Ends.
Gore Score.
Yeah, we said that again, as Donnie mentioned. It's not overly gory or too as graphic as Halloween Kills would get to be. But yeah, this movie is on par, at least with the with Halloween Ends, as far as the level of gore. It may edge it out a little bit, but I don't know if it's going to edge it out enough for me to give it what I gave Halloween Ends. Definitely not what I gave Halloween Kills. I gave Halloween Kills an 8, and it is a well-deserved 8. It like I said, it ratcheted up the gore, and it made the movie fun, I think, as far as it, giving that old school slasher splatter feeling that you get. And then Halloween Ends, I gave it a 6, because it came back down. So I don't think I can give this movie a 7, because I don't think it had that much more gore than Halloween Ends. So I'm gonna go on even 6 with it as well.
I do think this one is probably slightly better than the other two, just looking back on the trilogy now, except that second one has way more. If you've just come to see Michael Myers do damage, that's the one you want to watch. This one was more like, let's reintroduce the monster to the world, Frankenstein's monster is loose again kind of thing, so and you got a little taste of, the violence right in this one. But yeah, so I think overall that's pretty fair. So yeah, so there we go. I guess that pretty much puts a bow on this edition of Spook Show Rewind, and probably the last time we'll talk about this trilogy of Halloween movies for a while at least. But on to bigger and better things. So next month, when we return to the Spook Show Rewind, I'm really looking forward to this because I haven't sat down and watched it since we did this all the way back in episode 7, and that is Street Trash from 1987. So this is one of those ones where we watched it, and this one has stuck with us for all these years since, for the last 3+ years, right?
Yeah, I think I'm going to dust off that bottle of Viper for this episode.
Yeah, you need some of that Tenafly Viper.
Yeah.
Get ready to come back to the junk hole with us for Street Trash from 1987. So I'm really looking forward to that. Go check out all the other cool series that we have here on YouTube. We've got Hammer Horror and Order coming up in another week or two. We just had our latest Grindhouse Gutter where we talked about Tombs of the Blind Dead. So we got lots of cool stuff coming. I mean, obviously you've got Thanksgiving coming up pretty soon, and then we're going to be diving knee deep into the Christmas holidays. We've got lots of cool stuff lined up for that too. So I'm really looking forward to what's coming. So we encourage you to subscribe and listen to the All-American Spookshow Podcast, wherever you get your podcast. Everything's right here on the YouTube channel as well. And go visit aaspookshow.com. That's kind of the center of the universe that will point you in any direction you want to go. So thanks for watching, and we will talk to you next month.
See you.
Later.